Good morning, Mr. Lee.
Good morning. Good morning. What young man are you talking about?
Yeah, I told somebody the other day, they asked me how old I was, and I didn't hide it. I told them I was 68. What? And you move like that? I said, how am I supposed to move? You
Eh,
know? Let me cut on my be nice everybody can see who I look like today.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Hey, there's Ron. All right.
There you go. No, I was down at the new place broadcast. I'm from the house today. Uh,
Okay.
for some reason, I forgot to bring a piece of equipment over there yesterday, and my
Mhm.
mic sounded muffled on the interview. And
Mhm.
I said, "Well, I'll go ahead and bring it over there tomorrow, but I'm going to do it here at the house today. Then bring the equipment over there. When you transitioning, you think you have everything done. Of course, you be doing that yourself, transitioning over to another place, another country. So sometimes we think we got everything, and we don't.
Right. Right.
Have you ever had something that was thrown away, but yet you knew you had it, you kept on looking for it? You ever ran across something like that?
Yeah. This morning, since I packed up most of my stuff, I thought I had the sweatshirt,
Yeah.
but it wasn't where I thought I had it. So, right now we're in disarray. I almost didn't make it on time this morning because we giving away so much stuff and couldn't find my tea, couldn't find my my morning juice, anything this morning.
Yeah.
Everything's mixed up, but we made it, and I did have it. But sometimes that's that sign of old age. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, I call it sign was multitasking too much.
That too.
I call it.
Very similar traits, right? Very
Yeah.
similar traits.
Hey, one thing I want to talk about first thing this morning. They
Uh,
finally, they finally arrested that white lady in Florida. He killed that black woman.
mm,
Um, Sheriff Woods there in the city there that they want to do an investigation first to make sure it wasn't Florida stand my ground law, and it wasn't. And he said point blankly, it was a killing. And she was arrested on manslaughter with some other charges towards the lady who's deceased, her kids, Mrs. Owens, her kids. So she got multiple charges on her right now. So, but I don't get the law stand your ground, and they say reverse it around. It was a black person that killed a white person. They've been arrested right then and there. So, but that's one thing I want to touch base on because that we just can't seem to go through a week without tragedy hitting. And we got to say it's tragedy. The reason why I'm saying that, we don't want everybody to say this is the new norm. This is not normal. I don't care anybody. It's not normal taking nobody's life. Mass shooting is not normal. So let's get that out of the way. It's not normal. Politicians need to do something about it. It's normal in their heads because they don't care.
mm. Well, don't care. Detached from reality. And we've talked about in this show many times how something happens a lot of times. The politicians get to DC, and we talked about how usually senators, congressmen have what they call a freshman class, and then they, come up to senior, and it just something happens with how they have to so-called work together and compromise. And what happens typically is when they compromise, somehow everybody ends up getting not what they want, right? And then they celebrate that as a victory because they passed this watered down or middle ground type legislation, which really holds back in a lot of ways progress. But they call it progress because they've done something. You know what I'm saying? They put forward something. Stand your ground laws. I know we've had a lot of issues in terms of at least how laws are administered to people of color, seeming that we end up with the short end of the stick. I think Richard Pryor used to say, I went down to find justice and just found just us,
Yeah.
down there in court. So this has been an ongoing, continually ongoing thing that we have to fight. And it really comes down to, just understanding the mindset of the country that we live in.
Yeah.
And it is definitely, something that we have to look at and how the laws are being administered. They show this, justice always is blind, right? But she definitely doesn't seem to be colorblind. She seems to always seem to come down a little harder on folks of color in terms of, if you look at how many people are sentenced longer durations for first-time offenses or, similar violations, it seems like, people of color, we get the most serious, sentences. And we also seem to get the most, not, well, people don't seem to get charged when our lives are taken. And even though it should be clear that, you don't have the right to have lethal force. We're talking about here in Texas where somebody saw somebody breaking into a house, right? And granted, you should be breaking into a house. But when you're vacating or when they're pulling away, you don't necessarily have a right to take somebody's life if they're trying to get away, right?
Yeah.
It's only when your life is in danger or you're trying to intercede, and maybe your own property being taken, or if you're somehow out there and you see something happening, you try to stop and you feel that your life is threatened. But when people are leaving, I don't think that is when I know it's not, because I have a CCW. You have to be very careful when you, especially if I, as a person of color, take somebody's life, you better make sure that you got a clear precedent that you pulled that trigger. Because if I take somebody's life that doesn't look like me, you're probably going to get charged with something, but if I take the life of somebody that looks like me, unfortunately, any life is valuable. But the reason we have to say Black Lives Matter is because they don't seem to matter when it comes to legislation. Doesn't seem to matter when lives are taken. And stand your ground law is one of those things where we have to stand up against and say, hey, you just can't take a Black life with no consequence. And now we're starting to see, a little bit more in terms of legislation, in terms of judgments, in the case of George Floyd, we've got some, we're starting to see some things, but we don't forget, we've got George Zimmerman still walking around here, right?
Yes. In Florida.
In Florida. It seems like Florida seems to be a common denominator for a lot of interesting things, right? And I used to live in Florida. And you got to remember, Florida's in the deep South. Florida is the deep South. So other than Disneyland, you can find yourself in some serious issues, and even in Disneyland, probably, I don't know, but Disneyland seems to be having some problems with DeSantis right now. They're going at it. So, DeSantis is beating up on Mickey Mouse, or Mickey Mouse is beating up on DeSantis, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I do want to back up a little bit and say at the end of the last show, I think I misspoke. I didn't say my saying right. It is, your actions are speaking so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. I think we were trying to get off the line so quick. I think I said to the effect of, your words are speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. I guess we could look at it that way. Sometimes people are saying something, that don't make sense. And
yeah,
I can hear that too. But the saying is, your actions are speaking so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. So what does Texas say? Let's look at that example. Florida, and Texas in a lot of ways, but Texas is passing legislation. Things are happening action-wise that I can't pay attention to what you're saying, because your actions are saying a lot. Critical race theory, this whole thing about critical race theory, not being able to teach the history of African American or people of color and how we were disenfranchised. See, I remember when I went to Michigan State and I broke down, and I'm about to say the word, the Jewish community, and compared it to the African American community. And I said, I knew about it. And I actually took the time to study the history of Auschwitz and Dachau. And I talked to some Holocaust survivors, and I actually saw the number on the arm of a man who was at, I think it was Dachau, one of the concentration camps. And he told me in detail what happened when they went into those concentration camps. They took the fillings out of their mouth. They took all their jewelry. They took all their wealth, right? And then I compared that to slavery, and I said, slavery was also an economic thing. It was, we were exploited for economics. The Jews were exploited for economics. And when I broke that down, at first they were offended because I brought up the Jewish community. But when they saw I was educated about the Jewish community and they knew I was educated about our history, this guy was getting ready to graduate and go on to law school or go on to become a community leader or whatever. I was at James Madison College up at Michigan State University. Shout out to them. And when I was thinking I wanted to be a legal counselor, not a psychological counselor, and the group of people in the Jewish community that come to our meeting said, I had never thought about it the way you did. That it was economic, not just a social and cultural attack. It was also an economic attack. And we need to have these discussions. We need to bring up our histories, talk about those things so we can talk about our commonalities and the fact that the Jewish community has supported the African-American community, and we have supported the Jewish community at times when things have happened, when they've been attacked, when anti-Semitic things have happened. We've had some Jewish partners. We need to start coming together as a whole, but it's hard to come together when you don't know your history. We've talked about the Hispanic or Latin American gentleman who had on a white supremacist vest and thought he was part of a right-wing death squad and committing a mass shooting a few weeks ago. How you have that when you don't really understand your history, and that organization doesn't want anything to do with you, and you're going and committing killings on behalf of an organization that really part of that element wants you gone. Right. So you got to do your history. You got to understand what's going on. And, the organization that I work with, we're going to teach our history, call it critical. I'm from a, thought of all of our kids need to know how to critically think. That's a challenge right now. If it's not on the social media platform, a lot of them aren't really thinking about a lot of things, aren't functioning socially. Right. And we also know that with these social media platforms, they're also losing social skills, not becoming aware of their own mental health and well-being. My wife said, she wanted me to mention to folks today that, that are feeling down to, remember God, remember faith, remember spirituality, right? And to lean on that. That is a very important dimension, a very important thing to remember your spirituality, to lean on faith. I know as a therapist, as a Christian therapist, I can't in a lot of my contracts, go in the room and go right to that. But as soon as somebody talks, it reveals that they're a Christian or they have a faith or practice, I can tell you those folks seem to recover a lot faster. They have a reference, there's this old saying, lean on the rock, right? The rock of ages. There's a psychological foundation there that there's a lot of strength. I always talk about people reading the 2 P's, Psalms and Proverbs. When you want wisdom, you read Proverbs. I give kids that tell me they have a Christian background, they have a Christian faith, read Proverbs from cover to cover, from beginning to end. Read Proverbs, because you're going to get knowledge, you're going to get wisdom. Then also read Psalms, right, to calm your soul, your spirit, to uplift you. There's some powerful scriptures. And in our families, Psalm is the 23rd Psalm. Being able to quote that and say those words when you're getting encouraged. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. When you're going through something, when I was going through poverty, when I was living in Flint, Michigan, I would hold that word up to God and say, hey, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So now when I go into the refrigerator and I see I've got a full refrigerator, my child has not known hunger, we speak that stuff into existence. And I do truly believe when God hears his word and you're believing it and claiming with faith, at some point in your life, that's going to come true. That also applies in psychological standpoint. You don't have to, I consider myself a decent counselor. You see these awards on the wall and plaques over here from the military and all that. I consider myself a decent counselor. But I truly believe Jesus is the perfect counselor. He's the true counselor, right? Because he can be and minister to your spirit, the Holy Spirit. I feel like I'm preaching right now, but that's okay, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. One of the tricks of in depression, and there is this duality in terms of spirituality and psychological disorders. One of the things that happens with people is they feel like they're going through something alone. See, if you're going through something alone, it's always going to make you feel a lot worse. Right. That's from a social media standpoint. You look on there, everybody seems like they're happy. Everybody thinks that, their hair looks good or lack of their hair, it looks all right or whatever. They look presentable and everything's great. But what you don't know is people are crying. People are going through something. What I really wish is social media could show the true picture of how people's really doing. Then you would say, okay, yeah, they have bad days. They have, bad hair days, face days, life days, whatever. But if you're already in depression, you're looking at everybody, doing well, that can make you feel alone. Right. The fact of the matter is you're not alone. And what does the word say? I will never leave or forsake you. Right. So there you go. You got help right there. Then you got angels at your command that you can call on. And I tell people, call on your angels. They're waiting on you. Call on them. But you got to be a believer to be able to call on them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a part of that. But and I've seen it work. I've seen it work where I've had my angels go before me, where I know people are talking about. The angels go before me, they're with me, and I also pray that they stay there when I'm gone. And then things just seem to happen at your workplace. When you stop messing with it, stop dealing with it, and let God take care of it, amazing things can happen. But you got to know, and it takes some time to really get in there and understand how to utilize your spirituality. And I've helped a lot of people in the military and out of the military. Once they profess that they, are Christian, I said, well, hey, why aren't you using the tools that you have? So using the tools that you have, making sure that you have a friend to talk to. There's been a study on that. Happiness. If you just have one friend that you can confide in, not the friend that's always pulling from you, always bringing you down when you talk to them. No, somebody that lifts your spirits up. We have a very powerful and loving family here in San Antonio. So I want to give a shout out to Brad and Sandra, who took us out yesterday to Chamagouche, my favorite steakhouse, my wife and I's favorite steakhouse, and my daughter's favorite, Brazilian steakhouse. And we fellowship, we lift each other up. When I talk to you, we joke with each other, we talk about each other, but we lift each other up, today, I call you something, you call me something, and but we know if we need each other, we got each other's back.
Right.
My brother Glenn and Veronica, and it just goes on and on. My brother Tyrone and Jackie, all of these folks that have positive energy. So when people don't have positive energy and they see what this fellowship we got, and they're like, oh, wow, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Well, if your energy isn't right, you're not going to feel right, because we're trying to lift each other up. We're having fun. We're doing things. Be around people that are going to lift you up. They're going to recharge your batteries. If you're around somebody, you see that phone call come in, and I don't know who I'm talking to today, but pay attention to this part. This cell phone, when it rings and you see somebody's name come up in your spirit, and everything just goes, oh, I got to deal with this. Before you even hear them. If they always have drama going on, let that go to voicemail. If you're already feeling down, why talk to somebody that's going to bring you down first?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that even could be family members. I got some folks that, unfortunately, I have to let go to voicemail because I'm dealing with some stuff right now. I'm about to leave the country in a few days. I'm moving over. I don't have time to go through drama or help to fix your situation. Hey, go to God. His line is available 24 hours a day. Mine is available from 9 to 5. and that's I got to have some time with my family, my friends, and recharge my batteries. Always remember, you have to have time to recharge your batteries. Now, another thing that's really dangerous from a psychological standpoint is not knowing when your batteries need to be recharged. Some people are running with no batteries, right? And then they're wondering why they're having so many physical ailments. They're wondering why they're having so many psychological issues, can't focus. Every day you have to take some time and to get some me time, but you got to learn how to be self-aware, right? You got to know when you're stressed out. So we've got these smart devices on us, use them. When your heart rate goes up too high and you see it sustaining, this phone will let me know if my heart rate goes up too high. If I'm standing there and my heart rate is going up too high, then I got to start assessing, well, what's going on? Am I hurting somewhere? And I start thinking, oh, my ankles hurt. Go sit down. Heart rate is starting to come down. right? People, and I'm praying for him right now, Jamie Foxx. I don't know what happened with him. Everything's in secrecy, but you've got to understand, like, if this was, let's just say if he had a stroke, understanding the signs of a stroke, understanding, being aware of your health, being aware of your body. And when you're under pressure, when you're doing things, if you multitask, right, and you've been doing that for a long time, it can have an effect on you, right? If you're not getting enough sleep, we can talk about that for a second. A lot of kids, they have ADHD. I hear it all the time. Oh, my child won't sit down. My child won't do this. My child, he can't focus in school. How much sleep does your child get? Oh, I don't know. And they start monitoring their child, and they're like, oh yeah, he's always up to like 1, or she's always up to like 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then trying to go to school the next day.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not going to be able to focus or concentrate because the brain hasn't rested. They haven't recharged their batteries, right? And they haven't rested their mind. So of course, now you're expecting them to go to school where they're pouring all that information on. The brain is like, look, I need a break. I'm about to take a break right now, and and goof off with my friends because I can't focus on this lesson. And then it continues to go on until they get left further behind. Then they get disinterested because they can't focus on the previous lessons. And lessons build on each other. So if you've missed multiple lessons, and some people have missed multiple grades worth of knowledge, so then you wonder why the dropout rate is the way it is, or why they're not functioning in school. Take a notice of your health and your children's health, and I think we'll be doing a lot better off. Also, you got to look at your diet. Caffeine is not the friend of your child. What does caffeine do?
Hype.
Get you hype. So you're not getting enough sleep. You feed them caffeine, and then you send them to school and expect them to calm down. Stop it. And then they're sitting by their friend that they're going to talk and joke around all the time. Just like we joke all the time. If me, you, and Glenn were in class, I don't know if we'd have graduated. We all, you can see us right now. They would have had us separated in that classroom because it'd have been a mess. You know what I'm saying? So those are the type of things I go in as a therapist. I look at where the child is sitting, find out, how much sleep they're getting, what their diet's like, how much water they're drinking. And then before they get diagnosed with any type of the ADHD, they have to have a CAT scan to see if their brain is firing, very actively and for an extended period of time, even when there's no stimulation there. So that's kind of how we determine that. But you've got to be conscious of these type of things, the habits, your lifestyle, your environment. A lot of information today, man. See, that's what happens when I drink coffee. Getting all these psychological tips out there. I got to make up for it. This is supposed to be psychological and political that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we talk about political.
Oh,
man, this is going to be an interesting election. Do you know who's going to run for president or try to run for president? Cornel West.
You kidding me?
I heard it on NPR. I had to listen 2 times. Listen, I know he's an alpha. I'm a kappa. But I've always respected Cornel West and how he breaks down things politically, and just I had a pleasure of meeting him in Grand Rapids. I really think he's an extension of my Mount Rushmore up here that I have on the wall of just being a brilliant thinker. So I can't wait to see him in any type of debate with anybody really, but especially Cornel West and Trump. Oh my goodness! If Trump is not in prison where he should be. By that point, doubt he will be, but maybe we'll see. I can't wait to see that debate because Trump doesn't really want nobody that can go toe to toe, round for round,
right?
And Cornel West is not going to back down. So that's going to be a real interesting, process if Cornel West makes it to that point where he's in those debates. You look at Pence, he's, I think, throwing his hat in the ring now. I really don't know what Pence is thinking, or who, I mean, if he really thinks he has a shot. I think he does think he has a shot because he stayed the course, or tried to stay the course for the Republican Party. But for some reason, Trump is still holding on in terms of, having some type of, clout in terms of the Republican Party, or so it seems. But the fact that he has kind of been the whooping boy for Trump, I don't know how him or DeSantis is really going to stand up to what Trump, can do to him. There's a lot of, we called it. You said it first, Ron, and I had to agree with it. You laid it out perfectly. We got a lot of cult followers to
Yeah.
Trump, and that's what you have to look at, cult followers. Because if you think about it, what has he really done for any of his followers? What has he done? I mean, where's the healthcare legislation that he said he was going to, present to everybody that was supposed to take care of Obamacare? That didn't go anywhere. That died on the vine, right?
Yeah.
So what all these folks that, he was supposed to pardon and all that stuff, when he had the ability to try to do it, they got convicted. Conspiracy, sedition, the Proud Boys, all those folks. So and they started to wake up. If you remember the January 6th hearings, they started to wake up saying, hey, we were bamboozled,
Yeah.
we were led astray, so to speak. Well, people are still willing to be led astray because one thing I think Trump has successfully done is he's tapped into the frustration of primarily Caucasian folks and how they feel disenfranchised or things aren't going their way. But I think if they looked at their political party and looked at the rhetoric that they're selling them versus the concrete actions they're trying to do, and just saying no to everything the Democratic Party says without giving some workable solutions for both sides, that might be the problem. They know that if they just say the right keywords, oh, we're all about protecting guns, we're all about doing something about the border, but doing nothing. Where's the wall at? There was supposed to be, Mexico was supposed to pay for a wall. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where's it at? Mexico's laughing like, what you gonna mean? You gonna tell us they're gonna build a wall, and which was stupid anyway. When I was out in California, they had so many tunnels out there with power. Vending machines probably had break rooms down there. Everything. Going under the wall. So I don't understand. What this big thing is about a wall, but hey, they get around it either way. There's still gaps in this thing, and they figure out where to get in instead of dealing with the issue, creating better legislation with countries in South America and Mexico, creating better relations and trying to help to fix the problem down there. We're too busy trying to fix problems overseas and create and fight for democracies over there when we don't have those democracies right at our borders, that are causing people to come on up from South America to come in here, and you're never going to stop that. That's our marquee. Bring us your poor, your disenfranchised, all that. And now we got Republicans saying, hey, we want to give the Statue of Liberty back to England. Well, look, hey, you put it, we were the light on the hill for so long. How you going to then say, okay, well, we got enough people now,
Yeah. Yeah, y'all going back. You reached your quota already. So
we reached our quota of people. So stop sending us like you're disenfranchised. Look, we just got to learn how to think and go back to that thing about critical race theory, right? We got to learn how to critically think, and you got to know your history. You got to know how to think outside the box, and you got to stop seeing everybody as a them. It's a us. The United States is also known as a republic, meaning that we're supposed to be working together. And the beauty of our political party, I think we have to remember where our strength was. Back in the day, not too long ago, when a party won the election, we were supposed to then say, okay, this is what the American people wanted. We're going to support this party, and the American people have spoken. We may not be happy with, how the election came out, but if the American people have spoken, we're supposed to support those folks that have the majority, have the office, and move forward.
right.
One of the most damaging things that Trump did was challenge or attack the political process that for hundreds of years have made us unique in saying that the election was stolen with no evidence of that. And organizations like Fox got hit with $787 million lawsuits, more coming. Dominion was like, look, oh, you're going to talk about and make fraudulent things and comments and statements. And every court case, people forget this, every court, even that were appointed by Trump and the Republican Party, even they said there was no evidence to support the so-called big lie, right?
Right.
The damage that was done. It's almost like now that things aren't going exactly the way certain folks want, they want to take all their marbles and go home, right? We don't have, even to this day, a Voting Rights Act that passed, which guarantees people of color the right to vote.
Right.
So understand, we've got a long way to go till this American Republican ideal live up to what we put on paper and send out to the world. So we're sending billions and, possibly close to $1 trillion or maybe trillions of dollars over to Ukraine for democracy and fighting against, that. But we still, right here in the United States, are fighting for basic rights and privileges that we should have had long time ago. And so that's why, we sit there, and if you don't, that's why you have to know your history so you can know how you're still being bamboozled and how you're still being slandered. We talk about reparations. We're going to talk about a lot of things today and bring this up. There's a lot of push for reparations. A lot of people are against reparations. One of those guys was Mitch McConnell. And I understand why Mitch McConnell doesn't want reparations to happen for people of color. You know why? Because his parents, his grandparents, and his some of his ancestors were slave owners. So he's thinking, oh no, he's nervous. He might get taxed, for some of that wealth that he's gotten. You can't exploit people for hundreds of years and then say, okay, go pull your bootstrap, pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you don't even have the boots. And then you block people from even going into the boot store to get the boots and take every bit of money they have from them to even buy the straps to pull up. If you could ever somehow afford the boots. Sharecropping after slavery was nothing but extension of slavery. Then you redline folks that my grandparents and people like the Franks and the triplets had to break that red line, and they got exploited, paid twice what they had to pay for the land. Yeah, we're going to be coming for the money up in Michigan. You better believe it. That was taken from my family. And then you had the nerve to say, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. No, we need some reparations. Even the playing field. And I used to have, some discussions with folks about, ending affirmative action, which they also, by the way, are trying to put laws in place that stop affirmative action. Saying that there's some laws that just passed here, I believe in Texas, that says, you can't have any favorable laws based on culture, race, or anything like that. But interesting, if you go to any major university, you're going to see some buildings with somebody's name on it. Right. And that means that they probably donated a couple $1 million or whatever the case may be in a trust, or when they passed away, they dedicated, a large part of their wealth because they had nothing else to do with it. Their whole family is getting paid off. So they got an extra 20, 30 million, whatever, to give to a school. What they did is they created their own affirmative action. That means that their kid could barely have grades enough to get into the school because their last name is something that's on one of those buildings. They get into the school, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Isn't that affirmative action? Based on the exploitation of other folks. Go down to Galveston and look at some of those mansions that were built off the labor and the wealth of, of exploiting other people. And then look at what those companies then evolved into from that wealth. They went on to own oil companies and things of that nature. Something should register in your spirit about how that exploitation happened and continues to happen, and something is owed, and something at some point will need to be paid. Right? So that's how you even the playing field. But it's not just giving the money. You have to know how to do with what to do with wealth, or you lose it.
Yeah.
We look at those people right all the time that, get lotto tickets, and then, all that money's gone in a few years. Why? Because you got to know what to do with wealth, how to what type of things to invest in, not to spend all of your money. Let some of it work for you, right? So anyway, talk about a lot of things. We hit politics, we hit wealth, we've picked mental health. What else we got, Ron? Man, we trying to keep it on track here.
I want to go back on you're talking about all the tunnels that was, to get into the United States. Tiffany brought up saying they are the ultimate engineers who could build a tunnel, put lights in it and all that stuff right there. Those are engineers right there. They knew how to do it.
They knew how to do it. And they also do work that nobody else, excuse me, wants to do. Florida's having a huge problem right now because they passed some laws that have gotten farmers completely pissed off. And so what they're passing down there are some laws that say that, if you are a descendant of an immigrant, that's illegal. If you're born in this country, you don't necessarily become a citizen. Also, if you don't have your identification, you're not going to be accessed healthcare, able to access healthcare and other things. So they're trying to make it very difficult to live in the country and work in the country if you're not a citizen, right? If you haven't had your American citizenship. So what's happened is a lot of farmers are losing people. They're going to other areas, other states. A lot of farmers are now also moving to Georgia, other states, right? So what that means is, I don't know what Florida's going to do. They possibly about to lose Disneyland. Disneyland pulled the plug on a $1 billion, expansion they were going to do.
They pulled the plug on another one too.
So listen, you're gonna pay for that. You're gonna pay for that rhetoric and all that stuff that you're talking. And when all those people start, not being able to afford, when you go to Olive Garden and a salad is $20, they used to be $5 or $6, $7 or whatever, and you can't afford it. Look, and I'm gonna tell you, some of these folks, they don't want that work. Who's gonna get out there and work those fields like that? You go to places like El Centro, California, and you see people that come over to I think it was Mexicali, that are coming into the United States just to work and then going back to Mexico and all that. When people and something happens out there, they're living, over there trying to help farm or whatnot. Who else is getting out there? I know we ain't. Black folk, we ain't getting out there and farming. I know white folks aren't going to get out there and farm. So who's going to get out there and farm these crops? And so that you can go to your local store, your local restaurant and have a meal that you can afford. We're already talking about things are too expensive for a lot of people. Well, how do you think that's going to play out? And I know they're saying, well, we're not worried about that. Okay, you're not worried about it until you start taxing your paycheck, start taxing your account on the basic things that, you say you want. So, you're saying one thing. Republican, it is interesting. A lot of the Republican Party, they say one thing, but then when they see the result of what they want, they don't like that either. So critical thinking, right? We talking about that. Know your history. Who gonna get out there and do this work that you don't want done? So I don't know, grow your own crops. Maybe you better make your own Olive Garden, because soon a lot of folks, they're complaining so much they ain't gonna be able to afford what they want. And some of these very ingenious folks that you're exploiting, we need some of those ingenious folks in our economy educated so they can contribute to the society. Take a look at how many immigrants in this country have contributed to our society. Most of the advancements that we experience and enjoy have come from immigrants. Didn't everybody see Hamilton by now? That was immigrant. Beautiful. One of my daughter's favorite musicals, Hamilton, right? Come on now, the White House, engineered by African American. Those beautiful buildings and structures you see, couldn't even get into them, but we designed them. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta have to start living up to this ideal a lot more and understand the history. That's why they don't want you to know your history so they can continue to exploit you. One of the first things, and bringing up the Jewish community again, what the Nazis and all that stuff used to do, they used to destroy the books. They didn't want you to know your hit. They didn't want them to know the history. And they then started to give them propaganda of, the so-called superior race. And that got smacked down quickly, especially in the Olympics when Carl Lewis and everybody else got out there and they saw that they were not the superior race.
Yeah.
They don't want that in history. They want to erase that too. Right. So pay attention. The Republican Party is starting to get real interesting with some of the things that they're trying to do. And there is a historical precedent for folks that try to do things like destroy history, try to start controlling procreation, pro-life, right? They're so pro-life, but they don't want to have equitable health care. So we want to get you here, and then you just suffer.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a point about how they get you here. Now, I'm going backwards a little bit about how inventions are done. Black people for years been working out in the fields when they first came over. They invented the cotton gin. They invented the ironing board, the simple tool, the ironing board. This black, I forgot her name. She invented that. Look at all the inventions. If you take all the inventions that were made, take it away. Eventually they would have done it, but you look at the air conditioner, blood plasma, stoplight, lawnmower. You start naming all those tools off. It was done by Black folks. See, there's got to be an easier way of doing this. I'm going to invent something. And that's what they did.
You know your name. I ain't going to say it on the air, but
Go ahead.
I ain't gonna say it on the air. Try to be a little professional around here, but man, listen, you get this guy a screwdriver, he can pretty much fix anything. That's something you can't teach in books. See, we have a natural knowledge, we have a natural ability. And usually, I understand why people are so scared of us, us Africans that are African Americans, and they're kind of like, well, how can they do this? How can they do that? Why is it we got the Midas touch? Everything we get into turns to gold. We always when we get in something, we end up getting to the top of it. Why is that? Why? Because people like me, people like you got that same conversation years ago. If you get in it, you're gonna have to be twice as good as everybody else.
Yeah.
We've had a culture of having to try to figure out how to make do because we didn't have. So what that did is it taught us how to be creative. It taught us how to be ingenious with a lot of the things that we did. Even the scraps of the food that we were given, we turned it into soul food. And now that's sold in some of the most expensive restaurants around the world. Why? And those are recipes that our families have come up with. And I think my great grandmother worked for the governor of Kansas, and used to hook up those meals, and I got to take advantage of it when I was a little kid because my grandmother used to cook and throw down. Now my wife, is throwing down and can cook great meals and all that type of stuff. But not just the cooking. We're talking about being able to excel, be ingenious. We need those traits in the economy.
Right.
We need those ingenious people to go to see these best colleges and universities and not die on the vine in the elementary and secondary eds because they don't have access to quality healthcare and resources to get them to be able to excel and matriculate, big word, up to the college levels. That's why I can't wait to get over to Japan so we can see and study how they do things with their kids. And we're going to be featuring that on this show and on the YouTube channel, JL's Impact, my wife's channel, I_am_Tiff, something underscore. Tiff put it on the chart. But her channel, and then the Lee's Overseas, we're gonna start getting into and showing a different culture, a different mindset, a different example, and maybe pull some of those things over to here, because a lot of people don't know this. Japan came over and studied
I was going
the
to say that. Yeah.
American educational system back in the 70s. When I was a teacher in Marion County, in Ocala, Florida. That's why I can talk about Florida, because I lived in Florida, taught school in Florida for a while, and know some of those racial and socioeconomical oppressive things that went on down there. But just understanding that we have to equalize. And I know that sounds like socialism, but it's really not. It's just humanism. It's just making sure everybody has the opportunity in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah.
An opportunity to excel and take advantage of their genius. Because guess what? We're taking advantage of it either. And you'd be surprised if you knew your history, how much people in your own family have contributed to this society. I have an aunt, a great aunt, that actually came up with and helped to design the pap smear on my dad's side of the family, right? So we can look that up. That's just one side. That's a medical procedure that most women have go through and get. That's something that I can talk about my family, and we're not talking about just a couple people. We're talking about millions and millions of people have taken advantage of that. Black woman, doctor, Sydney right now is getting straight A's in school, and she's interested in something, medical. So if you don't know your history, if you don't know what's going on, and go like, oh, that gene might have come through me and come through my wife, and together, and now we got a brilliant child. I now need to cultivate that gift and get her to where she needs to be, so that we can benefit the world and the community. That's why we got to start seeing ourselves as part of a republic and a global community. I teach kids to look at the local, national, international level. So hopefully it'll dawn on them, we're all connected. The pandemic should have taught that we're all connected, right? Because the pandemic didn't care if you're black, white, Asian, not Asian, Hispanic, not Hispanic. It was hitting everybody, rich, poor, whatever. So we are connected. Trust me. The pandemic showed that. But why can't we be connected in other ways, making sure that everybody gets access to a quality education? Because brilliance is not locked to any background or culture. If you've gone to college before, I will say you'll see certain cultures that seem to be at a different standard as a whole. And I'll talk about my Asian brothers and sisters, because I, at Michigan State, stayed at Wilson Hall, 7th floor. Most of them were getting straight A's. I remember, and this is a true story, one of my schoolmates got an A-. She was put on suicide watch because that was a dishonor to her family. Here I am coming in with a C going, thank you, Lord. I made it to this class, and and they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, man. I'm trying to get to this party. I'm trying to, what's wrong with you? And then I see this young lady, and I'm like, okay. So they have a different focus. They have a different emphasis on education at an early part. Now, when I got to that first degree, I realized I got to have a B average. I need to be focused on A's. And then when I got to that top degree, I had an A average. But it took me a little longer for that light to kick on. But I was also in a different position because all of my needs were met financially. I could eat every day. So I started moving up Maslow's hierarchy and focusing on, hey, I want to do something with an advanced degree at some point. So I got to make sure my foundation is set. Even though I transferred schools over 20 something times when I was in elementary, dealing with a parent that had addiction issues, until I got stabilized in Grand Rapids and laid the foundation, had great teachers like Larry Johnston, Mr. Brown, Mr. Clinkscales, rest in peace, that invested in me, and a community in Auburn Hills that said, look, here's what you need to be doing to live in a house like this. You got to get educated, work hard, develop that work ethic, and the light kicks on. And then the grandfather that demanded I go to college, even though I didn't want to. I was thinking about maybe doing some other things, but then no, I want this. I want to live at a certain level, but I have to be able to survive so that I can thrive. That should be everybody's focus, not the fact that they came across the border or if they were born in this border. Everybody needs to have an equitable shot at a decent education, decent quality of life, so they can contribute to this society. Until that happens, we will not be what we claim to be and put out to the rest of the world.
You know, you brought up something about graduating from college. A friend of mine years ago, he turned around and he was upset because his last course, he got a D in it. He was graduating, regardless, he was graduating and all that. So he was upset. I said, what you upset about? Because I got a D. I said, well, I'm going to tell you something right now. You know what D stands for? He said, what? I said, diploma. You, you're going to get your diploma anywhere, regardless, because if you go out for a job interview, you are going to graduate with a bachelor's, they're not going to ask you all your grades. You got a diploma. You went through everything. You got it. So let's not beat yourself up over that. He said, I said, think about it. You're graduating, right? He said, yeah. To this day, we talk. He remembered when I told him D equals diploma.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Ron, what you did is powerful there. Now, I'm not condoning that we have our kids aim for D's, because I know there's some kids out there be like, hey, Ron said a D means diploma. I'm going to go ahead and just get the D, and I'm going to be good. I am not going to set our youth up like that. You need to get an A. You know, if you can focus your attention and your energy on your education versus Call of Duty, GTA, and 2K, you can be okay. You can get that A, right? Dropping bars on these kids right now this morning. But what I'm trying to say is, you've got some folks in education, unfortunately, in higher academia, maybe lower. I call them gatekeepers. I don't care what you do. They're not going to give you the right grade, especially in those classes where there's a little discretion on how something can be interpreted, right? So you have to know that little saying that my grandfather used to tell me, you got to work twice as hard to get the same things. There's some gatekeepers out there, gatekeepers, black and white and others, that don't want you to excel, that would try to break your spirit. And you know you're putting quality work out there. You know, you looked at somebody's paper and you look at your paper and you're like, what's wrong? Okay, my grammar's right because I got a grammar checker and nothing's wrong with this grammar. You just don't like the point that I said, well, I wish you would have said it like this. Well, I don't have to say it like this because I don't think like you. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
And I can back it up. Well, they don't respect those scholars, right? Because they don't think the way they do. See, that's why it's important. This critical race theory has ramifications in education. And just because you got a D means that they may just dislike you. And they're going to give you a lower grade because they don't like the fact you can sit in there and you can pick up on this information real quick, while some of their buddies or some of the kids that they maybe like have to really study really hard and can regurgitate exactly what they want them to say, where you see something completely different, go, oh, this whole structure seems incorrect because it doesn't apply to my people like that. I see the holes in that. I see the hints of microaggression. I see the hints of racism. I see the problem. See, if you're a leader and it's in you genetically and instinctively, you can be incensed and aware of racism even in the formative years and in the formative institutions, and you can stand up against it. And when they see you and go, uh-oh, he's going to grow into an enemy.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's going to find out about those authors, Cornel West and others, that are going to make us challenge us even further. So they're going to say, no, that's not the way you should be thinking. I want you to think more Republican. I want you to think more Clarence Thomas-ish. I want you to think more Michael Steele-ish. I don't want you to think more Malcolm X-ish. I don't want you to think more Marcus Garvey-ish. I don't want you to think more uplifting your people-ish. But when you know your history, you know the BS, you know the rhetoric, and sometimes you'll know it more than they do.
You know, when I went to Southwest Texas called Texas State now, I took this course course analysis where we had to learn how to write a course, a curriculum. We had to learn how to do that. But the professor threw a curveball out there. He said, we have 6 senses. Everybody know the 6 senses. I will give anybody A if they come up with the 7th sense. Now, I'm saying my age now. We didn't have computers back then. We had to go to the library and sit back and go through books and read. Actually had to read.
Yeah. Hey, what you know? What you know about the Dewey system? These kids. Well, I look at Sydney. And all she got to do is go to a computer and pull up her stuff. Man, we had to take a whole day and go to these pull out them stupid. Okay, then go to the book and then
the reference cards and all that stuff.
Cards, and then look at the old little periodical thing and sitting there with the little old projector. Like, okay, here's the article. Dang, that's the wrong article. Then you got to start the whole
go back again. I studied for about 3 weeks trying to find that. And so finally, I think I found it, and everybody turned the paperwork in, and the professor said only one person got it right. Well, it was this one white guy in there kept on calling me an old man. I said, you got one more time, call me old man. And you know, and so the professor said one got it right. He stood up. He said, nah, it wasn't you. Who was it? Mr. Gordon, you want to stand up? I stood up. I said, yes, sir. You got it right. I said, I did? I didn't know I got it right. So to let everybody know, I think Tiffany may know this. I think I know the 7th sense was called kinesthesia. And kinesthesia, it was amount of pressure you apply. You use it every day when you drive, how much pressure put on the gas pedal, accelerator, nurses, how much pressure put on to give a shot, all that stuff. And the guy said, where'd you find that at? I said, in the library. It's called reading. You may learn something if you read.
Yeah. But, Martha Rice, shout out to her. One of the impact life coaches. Card catalog was everything. Well, I'm telling you, here's the thing. Here's what I know about being able to read, being able to write, which is under attack right now. Please look at it. Mothers, fathers, folks out here. This AI stuff that's coming out where you can just type in a word and it will write a paper for you. The dumbing down of our kids, it's not a good thing. I'm gonna give you a perfect example of that. I was at the community college. I started out at Grampus Community College, where I was blessed enough to be able to teach. So shout out to Grampus Community College. I used to debate, and Mr. Garbowitz, that man, God bless him. I don't even think what we were doing was legal. He would pack everybody into a van, and we would go and drive down. And then I said, look, it's too tight in this van. I got to follow behind y'all with a car. But we would head on down to Dartmouth College, the Naval Academy, and we had to read and write our own legal briefs that we were debating. And the topic back then was right to privacy. I recently had a conversation with somebody about the right to privacy, which was a Supreme Court case. They were going over things like the Patriot Act, which was eventually enacted, which means that basically the government can spy on you anytime that they deemed you as a terrorist. And they will determine if you're a terrorist. So we went at this big thing. Bottom line is this. We had all these top-notch lawyers that they were coming there with these big old boxes of legal cases and all that. And me and a few other young folks from Grand Rapids, Michigan, we whooped their tail because we had our little box from Myers that we have had our little cases, but we had a case for each one of the cases. That like 2 or 3 of the cases that they had, and we found the holes in every one of those cases. So when they started speeding and going through all that stuff, they're running this, and this is the holes in that. And then they had somebody like me get up there, and then I could, take everything they said, poke a hole through it, big hole, and then the person would come behind me and just destroy them. Or then sometimes I would run that second part, and I would just destroy them, and we would go on to the next round. Point is this. We knew how to critically think. We know how to write. We know how to read. We had to go in that library and get that card catalog. Oh, my God. and pull up these laws and pull up how those cases were run. how those cases were run and won, and then be able to then articulate the difference of those two cases and why what we were saying was better. Now, the reason those folks got their butt whooped is they just had the case and they would just pick out the right case, but they didn't really understand what they were reading, and we destroyed them.
Mm.
So here's the thing. If your kids are just typing something and it's doing the thinking for them, when it comes time for them to think, and every one of these employers out here, every one of these higher levels of institutions out here are going to be looking at some point, especially when they get past the bachelor's level and also at the bachelor's level, when they're looking for their insight, not just to regurgitate, they're going to be stuck because they've never been asked to use that thing on top of their head and think.
Yes.
And when they don't, and if they can't think and know how to apply the information, and then, God forbid, add more information to the knowledge that was already down there and strengthen it, they're not going to be able to do that. But trust me, these other countries, the kids will be able to. So you know what that means? They won't be considered employers. They will be employees for the rest of their life. And not saying that being an employee, but and not maybe not even employees, they may not even get the job. Because now it's a requirement to have at least that bottom degree for most jobs is a bachelor's or some type of technical degree. But even in technical degrees, they expect for you to be able to apply the knowledge and sometimes be creative and think outside of the box. You know what they call those folks? Engineers. So it's important, very important that we don't dumb down these kids and for convenience sake. Because what's happening is we're lowering the IQ of our kids, and at a time when we need to be increasing the IQ for our kids. Things are a lot more technical now, right?
Yeah, I remember what you just said. I went to a technical school because I wanted to know about computers. So I went into it with a mind open, and I excelled in there. The lady couldn't believe the stuff that I was putting together and I was doing. And she said, well, why don't you go take a Microsoft test? I said, okay. That is one of the most strangest tests to take. But once I took the first one, I got used to it. So I ended up right now, I got 8 Microsoft certifications. And people don't know that, but I could work on any computer. And, it's just my thinking was I want to know how to do that. I want to know, because if my computer breaks, I'm not saying nobody else is going to charge me all that. I want to learn how to do it. And I did. So,
listen, you just proved your name again. That's all. Yeah, you sit over here proving your name, boy. I want to say your name so bad, boy. You just proving your name. And my point that we have to educate our kids because we have brilliance in a lot of our kids.
Yes,
our kids are brilliant in something, but if you keep cutting off their options to be successful in a positive way, they're going to take that brilliance and use it in another way.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want them to do that. You know what I'm saying? You don't want a mastermind the wrong way. You want them to go the right way with that, and that's what a lot of people don't think. There's a lot of brilliance that can be utilized in the community that's sitting in the penitentiary right now.
Yeah.
Right. So, or maybe sitting in a graveyard somewhere because they were brilliant in one way, but maybe common sense, they weren't so brilliant because nobody took the time to invest. See, one of the reasons I love working with the kids because when they know you care and you're smart, they'll listen to you.
They sure.
But if you don't care enough to maybe get past that initial knuckleheadedness, I call it, and say, boy, if you don't sit your, and listen to what I'm saying and be able to say that from a place that their parents understand where you're coming from. And that's a whole other conversation. God help some of these parents, right? That are so insecure that somebody's trying to help your child and you're feeling like they're attacking your child because you've come from a couple generations of learned helplessness and not thinking that the school's out to, come at you because of your last name. No, they're coming at you because your child is disrupting class.
Yeah.
Or they're acting a fool in the hallway, or they're trying to bully other kids, whatever the case may be. But anyway, we have to get back to that community mindset of it's a village. And I know that where I'm headed in Japan, they embrace that. Now, I'm not saying that any society doesn't have its issues, because we had issues back in some of our utopic societies, but we worked them out, and we had one common denominator. We wanted all the kids to be successful, and we were going to do what we could by our example and our resources to help them to be successful. And that's what we got to get back to, right? Because right now, we're looking at other people's kids and other kids as that's a them, and I'm not going to help them. I got to look out for mine.
Yeah.
Right. And again, COVID should have helped us understand that we all have to look out for each other, or there are some wolves at the door that are trying to destroy all of us.
Yes.
Right. And that's what we get into. When I go into those assessments for homicidal and suicidal ideation, the scary part is I've had to put some kids into mental health facilities that were exhibiting signs of homicidal ideation. Kids, grade school age, exhibiting signs of homicidal ideation. And everybody's so surprised. Oh, there's shootings in schools. How is that happening? You over here raising baby Chucky, not even understanding what you are allowing your child to see, what you're allowing your child to be exposed to, and not thinking he's not picking up on it. Kids are very perceptive.
Yeah.
And if they keep acting out a certain way and you're showing them violence and you are enhancing, that lifestyle, or saying this or saying that, hey, when that bully comes along, say, I got a plan B for you. I'm not, a plan B we would have never considered is their plan A.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you keep on talking about me. Put your hands on me one more time. And then you got a situation. I just said it last, I think it was 2 episodes ago, at my hometown, Grand Rapids, Michigan. 3rd grader came to school with one in the chamber and a full clip.
Ooh.
Now, there's a whole lot wrong with that. But what was he going to do with it? And showing it off, or whatever the case may be, in the mindset. We've already had teachers getting shot in the classroom by kids.
Right. Where's that one in I don't think they ever charged that kid. They charged the parents.
So that's what I'm saying. You better be mindful of what your kids have access to and exposed to. We are oversaturated with firearms in this country. A lot of people don't know this, is you can actually go online and they have places that will make a gun out of wood.
Yes.
And plastic guns. They can't be traced. So your kid, is asking for one of those machines that, can take a blueprint and make something in there. Your kid, literally, kids could be making guns in their house. Can happen, has happened. But because of us being so lenient on regulating guns, we are creating some really interesting kids. And I play some of these games. I have to admit, I'm guilty. But then again, I'm an adult. And the games are designed for me, because I got an AK, and not an AK, I got an AR, and I got a shotgun. I got all this stuff. But also, I hope my wife will agree with me. I got sense. Most of the time,
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, right? But I listen to some of these kids, and I'm pretty good at the game. So, I hold my own. And I hear what they talk about. I hear what they say. And I'm able to have those conversations with the kids, like, hey, you better be careful, listen to this foolishness, because real killers, they don't advertise. They just go and execute, literally.
Yeah.
And you can be amping these kids up, and the kids say, oh, okay. When you got that kid that's real quiet in the back, and he's pissed off, and you talk to him, and he can be ready to blow, you better take some of that steam off of him. find out what he's contemplating, because when he makes that decision to do what he's going to do, you better know how to read the room and figure out, hey, you might need to make sure that young man's going to be all right. That young lady's going to be all right, because you don't know what they're dealing with. They might be dealing with a double whammy, dealing with stuff at home and then dealing with stuff at school. Okay, well, I'm about to set it off in here. I'm about to set it off in here. You know, there are teachers that have literally saved schools, counselors that have literally saved schools, coaches that have literally saved schools from active shooter situations. And some of y'all got open campuses.
Yeah.
Buildings, you got an open campus. It's really easy to make that a disastrous situation. So when I do the trainings for recognizing this stuff, we got to get serious. We are at a crossroads in this country in terms of protecting our kids and understanding the Second Amendment and how it needs to be adjusted. I dare say we have got to really, really understand what's going on and what's going to continue to go on in our country with the misinterpretation of the Second Amendment. I cannot say that enough. The technology, I feel like a broken record, but I got to keep saying it. The technology at the time of the Second Amendment was a musket. Every weapon I have, if it was against a musket, they all would be in trouble. My MP15 would take out a whole squad of people.
And you got to realize with a musket, when you take that shot, it better be your best shot.
It better be your best shot, because it's going to take you about a minute or more to load that next one.
Yeah.
It gives you time. I don't know. Was there? I don't know. We got to go. We went to the History One show with the first active shooter, but it wasn't, it wasn't a musket. And if it was a musket, no, it wasn't a musket. I think I remember this. It was a school shooting, but it wasn't a musket. I mean, it wasn't a weapon like we have now. You're talking about weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
They're in the community right now. The real weapons of mass destruction, semi-automatic weapons, ARs, all that stuff, automatic weapons that should not be automatic weapons. Remember the adjustments that you can put on a handgun to make it an automatic weapon?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to do something, right? And that makes sense. And there are things that you can do. We're gonna maybe start looking at that, talk about the things that we can do in terms of pushing for legislation of the things that we can take, because there were things before that people used to say would never change, like Jim Crow, like putting on cigarettes that they cause cancer. There were things that people said would never happen. Well, guess what? People got tired and they fought and they changed legislation, made more awareness, made adjustments. We're at that point where we're going to have to start doing that with firearms. Now, my question is, when are we going to start holding these bought and sold politicians to the fire to make sure that they can take those ARs off their chest and then also take them off the street to the people that don't need to ever have them? And I dare say, if you've ever been diagnosed with homicidal ideation, you should never have anything. My wife cracks up when I say it, but I got to say it again. If you've ever had homicidal ideation, you shouldn't even have a slingshot, much less an automatic weapon that can take lives.
I'm gonna bring up something. You talking about wooden guns and plastic guns and all that stuff. I remember growing up that we made this thing called a zip gun. Remember that? Do you remember that?
I didn't make one, but I heard of them.
Yeah, zip at one bullet, and it worked. that was back in the days. I'm talking about 70s and 80s. I mean, a zip gun, and it worked.
Well, I'll tell you what. I had a pellet rifle that had the equivalent of a 22 handgun.
Mm.
And, I remember what it could do, and when I found out what it could do, I was like, uh-oh, yeah, I need to put this thing up. You know what I'm saying? Because, I've always had access to a firearm, but I was raised to understand the significance of, if I grab this weapon, it could change the rest of my life, and it could change somebody else's life. I don't know if we're instilling those values in our kids now. In fact, I dare say maybe we aren't. I know the churches try to teach, what they try to teach, but we don't have coaches / counselors like Mr. Clinkscales anymore.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Shout out to Grand Rapids, Michigan, Crescent High School, Polar Bears. But that he was involved. He was involved with. I wasn't on the basketball teams. I played a little football till I realized that wasn't my sport. You ain't gonna be knocking me out here.
Yeah.
And I knew we weren't gonna get no scholarships. But anyway, we've got to get to the point where people have teachers that are bold enough and coaches bold enough to get in your business and make sure that you understand, hey man, man up. If that person is talking about you, either square up, and I know I'm saying this as a therapist, but I understand how we have to grow up as men. You either got to learn how to fight, or learn when you have to fight, and learn when you have to walk away. But those are not reasons to go grab a gun. Those are not reasons to go grab a knife, even though you may be mad enough to. That man that you take years down the line, you may need that person. You may need to be able to look back and go, wow, I've grown personally because I learned how to deal with bullies. There's going to be some people in your job, in your workplace, that may try to bully you. You're going to take a gun there? And some people are.
Yeah.
Some people are. So we got to learn how to deal with what's called adversity. That's what makes you stronger. That's what makes you grow. If it doesn't break you or cause you to destroy your own future. And I'm going to say this, and this is what I tell parents to tell their kids. Think of your future. Have your children start thinking of their future as a baby. You have to nurture it. You have to protect it. You have to make sure nobody is going to steal your baby from you.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to teach our kids to think about it. And then look at all the threats to that baby. If your future is a baby, what can take it? Stupid mistakes. Yeah. Not nurturing it, not getting an education, not knowing what can hurt your future. This right here can destroy your future before you get a chance to get it. You can post one thing that'll keep you from getting into college.
And a good job.
And a good job. Yeah. And once it's out there, it's out there. They can pull it back up. There's agencies that are out there that can pull that information back up. Tell your kids to stop posting things. Every year I got to have this conversation. I know I'm going to have it where I'm going, do not take pictures of your body parts and send it, because now your child has participated in child pornography.
And they'll be labeled that.
And will be labeled that. Not the best way to start off your career. Understand that we've got to start teaching our kids how to protect their future. And we've got to sometimes protect them from themselves. They'll get on these computers and put your information out there thinking you slick. See, a lot of our kids think they're slick, but they don't know that every one of these devices has an IP number, and a lot of them have a camera, and they can figure out exactly where you were and what information was put out by you, because that thing was assigned to you. So you can't. Bobby did that. Bobby don't have your password. They can tell all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then when they're busted, then they're feeling stupid, like, well, I didn't know. Well, you should have had what was called common sense. But as you know, not so common anymore.
It isn't.
So, all right, man, we went over again.
Yeah,
so,
but I'm still gonna bring up something, a couple of things. I know we're over, But
We're over. Now this is our last. I was hoping for my last remote my last show here in the States. We are gonna be on time, but I see we're gonna go over. Let's
you
go.
know that's not gonna happen.
I know.
You know, you was talking about back in the days when we had our fights, and then 2 days later, you homeboys again. You had a beef and it was over with. But this one particular fight I witnessed, and I'm laughing to this day. I'm not gonna say their names, I don't want to embarrass them, but they got into a fight at the high school. One got the best of the other. So
Right.
we're walking on home from high school, and we're walking. All of a sudden, this cab pull up out of nowhere. This other guy got a cab, caught up with us, came out the cab with a brick and hit the guy in the head with it, and they started fighting all over again. Now, who gets a cab to come up there? But but 3 days later, they sitting back talking, man, that was wrong for you to do it. They were talking, they were friends after that, you know. And you look at today now, that would never happen.
Because they coming out of that car with something other than a brick.
Right.
And actually, I don't think a brick was. That's kind of violent right there.
When I think about that, I'm sorry, Debo, they beat you to it, that brick right there, because that guy Craig picked up that brick and knocked Debo out.
Yeah.
But you know, you look at what happened back then. Even though cartoons were very violent back then, but if you look at it, we knew right from wrong. We didn't go out and do that stuff. And like you said, nowadays these kids are zoned in, and watching those things on TV, and they're playing those games, and their mind is saying this. I can't remember who it was, some little kid that shot somebody else and thought that it was a movie I seen, that's what it was, and thought he would wake up and have another life. And it didn't happen.
Well, we've heard recently in the news about parties, graduation parties, just get togethers. I know a person, and I'll just say his name is the story. His name is Marshawn up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He had a little get together for teens, and this kid was refused at the door because Marshawn recognized him, knew he was gang affiliated. So when Marshawn turned around, Marshawn was shot in the head, right? But fortunately, it just grazed his skull and didn't go and go into his brain. He was able to recover, right? But just imagine, because you were kicked out or not allowed into a party, you're willing to take somebody's life for that, So we've lost respect for each other.
Yeah,
we've lost the connection of community, and it's a complicated answer, but I don't want to sound cliche, but I do want to know what the solution is learning how to love and recognize that I may need this person in the future. I'm not alone. I'm not lost. I'm not this thug, because I've been blessed to have met Tupac Shakur, who was very intelligent, but he used to say things in his music to try to give a hint. You want to be a thug as if a thug is a thing to be. He had to wear that thug life to survive during his life. Those are the folks that showed him how to move. But if you follow the story of people like Tupac, the thugs that were out there in the street said, hey, man, you're different. You don't have to be out here. You need to pursue that music thing. And if you remember Tupac's life, he started with Digital Underground.
Yep.
Digital Underground, Shock G, they were all doing stuff like the Humpty Dance, live stuff. And then he figured, okay, well, I know about this gangster life. I know about this thug life. I'm going to start rapping that. And then here comes Tupacalypse Now. So understand this. The thug life, if you embrace it, it will take your life. And that's even scripture. He that lives by the sword will
die by the sword.
The only reason you pick up a sword or a gun is to defend your life or your family's life or your loved one's life, that, extended family. Stop being a punk. Take a butt whooping or give a butt whooping. But like my boy said, use these.
Easy.
So,
I taught you better than that, Craig. Use
I thought
these.
I'd have never moved in this neighborhood if I knew you had to have a gun to walk up and down the street. You know, upset Friday. That's what Friday, man, brought up some good messages, you know. But then you mess around, and just like that story, you know, you got to mess around and messing with Big Perm or Big Worm, whatever his name was.
Worm, big worm.
Big Perm Worm. Yeah, man, I missed that
Yeah.
movie. I'm gonna have to watch it now, doggone it. But anyway, so you got to understand there's some stuff you can't mess with. There's some things you got to understand how you have to move. And unfortunately, it's a little easier for some folks and others to avoid some of that stuff. But, you know, we got to get back to, you know, keeping people from developing to those big perm or big worms. Get them opportunity to get some bread, some money legally, you know, set up these internships, you know, so they can get out there and get some money. Now, maybe they might not choose that. Well, if they choose that life, well, you choose the consequences.
Yep.
But at least give options, opportunities. I'm so proud to be a part of the Capital League, the Guide Right program, where we were giving these young men opportunities to have good jobs while they're in school, and then to help that matriculate to great jobs when they get out of school. Give them some hope and give them put some money in their pocket so that they can continue to move on and continue to move up. So shout out to all the Guide Right programs across the country that are showing these young men that you can be doctors, you can be engineers, you can be in the military. And let me just say this about the military. A lot of people think that they can be dumb and, you know, not excel in school and get in the military. The military don't want dumb people, okay? If you look at, go to any, I can tell you for a fact, most of the people that excel in the military, they end up getting degrees while they're in the military. That's how you end up moving up in the ranks, okay? You have to have some education behind you, which means you need to pay attention in school, because once you get in the military, you're going to have a job that you are going to do. And then you still have to do that and go to school, which if you're not focusing on school now, how are you going to focus on it when you're getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning doing PT and then going in to do your job? And it's not an option, because you will go to jail. They will come and get you and take you someplace if you don't do your job. Yeah. So there is no way around it. Get that work in, learn how to think, get your education, be it secondary education or trade school or military. You've got to teach these kids at an early age a work ethic and to know how to critically think. And if we do that, we're setting our kids up for success. If we don't do that, we're setting our kids up for failure, period. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we did
and
good.
Remember, your words, or how does it? Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. I think we said that correctly this time.
All right. Yeah, you got it this time around. Well, Joe, I guess our next conversation, you be across seas.
Yes, sir.
Having you, your wife, and your daughter, y'all have a safe trip. We're gonna miss y'all. I think I said that Saturday at karaoke. I said you may be across seas, but the love is still in our hearts we have for you and your family.
Yeah, much love to everybody here in the States. You know, check out the channel, the Lees Overseas. We're going to start posting some content information on that. The JL's Impact channel, we're going to be extending, going into more detail on some of this stuff. Some of the GPS presentation where we work with kids trying to get their mind right, getting their priorities straight. That's what it stands for, getting your priorities straight. And it's a play off of the GPS, letting them know where they're at to help them get to where they're trying to go. We're going to be rolling it out, rolling it out to a lot of schools, organizations, as well as a lot of Capital Leagues, Guide Right program, and just kind of get into some of this mindfulness stuff, teaching people how to take care of themselves. You know, then I think my daughter's got her little channel that she's going to be doing some things, reaching out to kids, being an A student, you know, what she's interested in, some of the things that she's doing to kind of give an example of some kids that maybe need some constructive habits and some positive things, positive energy. We're all about that light, that positivity. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And of course, got to catch us for the Impact, can't say hour, the Impact show that we're trying to make it Impact hour. It always seems to go over. So keep the questions coming. Shout out to all the countries that are listening. I think last time the numbers was 12,000. I think we're over that now. We'll get the analytics back. and we'll start shouting out some of these folks. I want to start getting more feedback on the YouTube channel, more questions. I mean, I got a lot of stuff we could talk about psychologically, but I want to hear more questions from the people. Not today, Ron. Don't pull it on me. But
all right.
once we get over to Okinawa, Japan, looking forward to getting more into that and going from there.
Yes, and that will be our sister city with WSN Radio, which you being out there. Okinawa will be our sister city here for San Antonio.
Yeah, outstanding. Really looking forward to bringing some of that programming. And I guess we'll call it our cousin city, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Got a life coach up there, Craig Washington. Got Martha down here, Martha Rice, I believe it is, last name, down here in San Antonio, Texas. Jared coming on board here, more therapists on the San Antonio team. So let's keep everybody focused and getting clients and helping out. And we've got some other folks coming up there. Tamara Spears up there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we've got a lot of folks that's coming on board doing things, and we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, we got Craig on. He's listening along with Tiffany, Coco, Martha. So you know they all chiming in.
All right,
chiming in. So
one day I'm gonna get one of those high-tech screens that Martha has, so I can multitask. You know,
I think I told her she go to her job one day, it's missing. I told her I took it.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna take it from you. So let me know when you got it. So, so I can figure out fly back here and get one of them things. So hopefully I can get something like that in Japan. So
you probably will. All right. You take care, Joseph. Appreciate it. Safe trip, but we'll talk to you later on the day.
Yeah. All right. See you then.
Okay. Yep. All right. Peace. All right. Peace.